We are live. Hello, everyone. Hello, 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 and welcome. Oh, I like the way that Rhea does that. That is so cute. All right. So, welcome, one, and welcome all. And when you get here, please be kind enough to put a hello into the chat. You guys should have found where we are now. It can be a little disorienting when you have um, one streaming service versus another. And I know that some of you were very comfortable with StreamYard. Now we are on Riverside. Look at those names, huh? StreamYard, Riverside. Okay. Rhea, thank you. Thank you for being here. I feel very honored to have you. So I want to just say thank you so much. I'm appreciative.
Oh, well, you know what? I am thrilled to be here. And watch out, world, because you got two Canadian girls on
Oh, that's right. Oh, I was going to bring
streaming.
my little Canadian flag
Oh,
and I
I should
forgot.
have we both should have had our Canadian flags. Go Canada.
Yeah. And then my American flag. It's downstairs. I have a pretty bowl and it has the Canadian flag, the American flag, the BC flag, because British Columbia's flag is one of the most beautiful in the world, and the Greek flag.
And the Irish flag, because I hold an Irish passport, a US passport, and a Canadian passport. And then so we would have
Nice.
four. We would have Greek as well.
Awesome. I love it. I love it very much. Well, thank you. And today we are here to talk about a particular subject that I think everyone who's in business thinks about from time to time. And it will, it affects our business and it affects everything that we do, including our lives. And I would like to start with the younger part of your life. What was Rhea Were you Campbell or Campbell your married name or your
That's
okay?
my
So
maiden
what was
name.
your maiden name?
Yeah, my maiden
Oh,
name is Campbell. My married
all
name
right.
is Lickerman. So I married a good Jewish man, and I'm a good Irish Catholic girl. So I kept my maiden name.
I hear you. I hear you. When you were a young child, what was little Rhea like? And I'd like you to talk to me about two stages. I'd say one prior to the first grade. Like, what were you like then? And then what were you like in like junior high? So tell me about what Rhea was like when she was little. And you have a sibling, right?
I do have two. You didn't tell me you were going to ask any of these questions, Effie. Mm,
Oh, well, sorry.
it's all good.
I
It's all
can't
good.
tell you everything.
It's all good. All right. So my mom died a year and a half ago. But yeah, I mean, my mom was the bomb. My mom was she was a badass. She really was. And my mom tells the story that when I was in my playpen, so I have two older brothers, I was in my playpen before I could even talk. I would be throwing toys out at my brothers, saying this. Russin, fussin, russin, fussin, russin, fussin. I was basically cursing and swearing at them, bossing them around from inside the playpen. And she told everybody that story. Of course, I don't remember that. I mean, I was like a baby, but it fits so like perfectly with my personality. It was a reflection of what I was to become. So
I love it. I love it because very often a girl who has, and I'm just checking to see, yep, we are live. A girl with older brothers can be overwhelmed. They go one of two ways, right? They
yeah.
either learn to be quiet and submissive or they're kick ass.
Yeah. No, I did not learn to be quiet and submissive. There's nothing quiet and submissive about me, as you guys know. So those were the very early days. And that was indicative of sort of what was to come. And, I grew up with two older brothers, so I did everything
Mhm.
that they did. And they were pretty,
Good.
we would fight, we would camp, Canadians, we would camp, we would ski. In fact, my dad and my brothers tell the story about when we were cross country skiing in the winter. We were camping. So, Canadians, as you know, Effie, right, we can be kind
Yep.
of hardcore. And we were ski
Yeah, we
camping.
love camping. We love the outdoors.
We love the outdoors. And my brothers, well, my dad was waxing one of the skis. And I used to always say that I wanted everything they had. I want, I want, I want. And so they were waxing one of the skis and pretending to eat it like it was a candy bar. And of course, I was like, I want, I want, I want, I want. And they let me eat, chew into the ski wax. So this was sort of, this was the kind of chicanery that went on in my family as we were growing up. So that was a pretty, pretty auspicious beginning. But my brothers were kind of wild. And I think my parents had run out of energy by the time they got to me. They were like, oh, good heavens, like we just don't have the bandwidth or the energy to try and rein her in. And they didn't, right? Which was a good thing and a bad thing. So I was like a free range chicken, just kind of like I was allowed to go and just do my thing, which was kind of cool. But I'll tell you, I'll be really honest with you. As I was growing up, so I've always had a huge amount of energy, like so much so that it needs to be harnessed in a way that can be used for good, not for bad. And
Yeah. Okay.
growing up, like as a teenager, I didn't quite know like what to do with kind of all that unbridled energy. And so,
Mm.
I drank a lot. I did some other
As
things
a teenager?
as a teenager, things that I probably, and I've actually been sober for 24 years,
Oh,
completely,
that's good.
yes, stone
That's
cold
good.
sober. So in my 20s, realized very quickly that that energy moving in that direction was not going to be a good thing for me. And thankfully got sober. But the part of this that I want you to know is that I didn't quite know how to harness my energy. And I kept looking for kind of excitement and like, okay, I'm going to change this. Now, from the outside, everything looks successful. So, I went to college. I went to college here in the United States. I went on to work
You did?
for,
You didn't go to school in
I,
Canada?
I did, part in Canada, part in the US, because I knew that I wanted to eventually come here to the US because the US was a bigger stage, right?
Of course.
And I needed the J2 visa. So the J2 visa was a path. Coming to school in the US was a path to get the J2 visa very easily. I think it was called
Mhm.
either a J1 or a J2. So got my degree here. Then I went to go work for Hyatt Grand Champions in Palm Springs, California in my 20s. It started out in operations. Then I went to go work for Four Seasons, and then I moved up through the ranks and worked for Fairmont Hotels and Resorts. The point is, I was never meant to work for other people. Never. Now, I've been classically sales trained, Hyatt, Fairmont, Four Seasons. They have incredible training programs, luxury hotels. I've traveled all over the world. I feel very grateful. But
Mhm.
from the outside, right, you have a corner office and you have a suit and you have the trappings of success. But I'll be really honest with you, I was dead inside. I was I knew I was in a life that I was not supposed to live, right? Like, oh, good
Mm.
heavens, what have I done? The thing is that I grew up in a very traditional family. My father was the CEO of a drug company in Canada, not in the US. In the US, I'd be a trust fund baby. In Canada, it's very different, as you know, Effie, right?
Yep.
And we were definitely upper class, but
Mhm.
Canada doesn't have the kind of wealth gap that
No.
we have here in the United States. So while we were
Right.
considered wealthy, we weren't, it wasn't abnormal like it might be here. And so success in my family was you wore a suit, you had a corner office, you got a great income, and you put your money away into your RRSPs, and you work for 35 years, and you hope you have enough money when you retire. Like that's what I
Gotcha.
learned. And so I was moving through life, with what I thought were the expectations, right? Of like what everybody expected of me. And inside I was like, oh, good Lord, this is not for me. But I didn't know. There was no pathway for me to be an entrepreneur. Now, again, I had all
Mm.
this energy that just was not, pointed in the right direction. So I was running marathons, I was climbing mountains, I was doing 18-hour hikes.
Oh, I love it.
Well, because that was I had to get the
Yeah.
energy out.
Yeah. Because there you could be yourself and you didn't have to, you weren't in an office. That's for sure.
Right, right, right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna sort of bring us around a little bit to the subject at hand of partnerships and partners. We're going to get back to where you are right now, but I want to go back into your childhood, meaning anywhere up to, let's say, grade 12, and talk to me about, were there any partnerships that you were involved with or in? How much older were your brothers, first off? What was the
Um,
gap of age?
4 years and 3 years, 3 and 4 years.
Okay, so they were a little older. Did you have any kind of a partnership with anyone, whether it's a good friend or a teammate or sibling or anything like that, that you started learning about, um, you know, partnerships?
No. So
No.
no. So I am a lone wolf. And people have asked me this before. So I have been alone, right? Like I don't play team sports. I'm a runner, right? So I run solo. Um, which I've done a bunch of marathons. You train alone and then you run the marathon. I've climbed mountains, and you do have to, you're with a rope team, but I haven't. I'm not a big team sports player. Didn't do any team sports. I was a gymnast when I was, you know,
Oh, you're in. Oh, nice.
gymnast. Yeah,
I can see that. I
but
can see that.
that's solo, right? You're not like you're on a
Yep.
team,
Yep. Yep.
but
And you're
right.
and you're always trying to compete against the 10, not necessarily the person that's next to you. You're looking for yourself to do the best. Yes.
That's right. That's
I
right.
get it.
So
That's
I didn't,
interesting.
but what's interesting? I have a 17-year-old son. He's exactly like me. He's right. So like it runs, and my husband is also solo. So if I really look back, I realize I was really wired just to be like kind of on my own. Right. I mean, I can
Mm.
be a good partner, right? I'm married. I've been married for
Mhm.
22
Yep.
years, right? I've figured that part out. So that's like, that's a success.
Congrats.
Once
I
only.
only got to
So
17.
that's a long time.
17 was it for me.
Girl, that's a long time, you know?
It is a long time, but that was it.
Yeah, it's a long time. So if I really look at it, no, I hadn't, I had great friends growing up, but my friendships spanned all different types of people. So I'm
Nice.
like a chameleon, right? I can dress in a suit and I can look very polished and professional. I can be with no makeup on, climbing a mountain and pooping in the woods. I can be, like I'm comfortable in all different kind of realms, I guess, right? So no, I didn't have a lot of opportunity
Hmm.
to be in partnerships, business partnerships, or sort of business relationships. Mhm.
Interesting. Interesting. I have to, I was thinking about this question just for myself when I thought I would ask you. And I remembered a very, very painful experience where I was 10 and my sister was 8. And my father he was just an evil guy. He always liked to cause trouble. So, and he wasn't home very often. And he came and he said, okay, I'm going to pay you guys, I think it was like $5, which was an inordinate amount of money at that time, for the person who can write the most in good penmanship. And you have X amount of days to do it. So my brother's older, my sister's younger. I was 10, she was 8. My brother was like, ah, shit, they're going to go and take this seriously. I'm not even going to try to compete. And my sister and I didn't want to compete against each other. We didn't want to see one lose and one win because we were always very close and I was always guarding for her. I was bigger. And I came up with an idea that I thought was perfect. I said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to practice writing the same number of words per line the same number of words per page, and we'll do great penmanship, and we'll give him 3 pages. And then he'll have to pay us each $5. That's what I thought. All right. So we agreed, we practiced. And then we went and gave my father the pages. And when he got to the end, he started laughing like a hyena. And I was like, what is he laughing at? What's so funny? And he said, he called me an idiot and stupid. You thought you could outwit me, and you lost. And I was like, what? And I looked at the paper, my sister's paper, and she had written one extra word.
Oh.
Well, you can imagine what happened in our house. I just went bonkers. I really, really got so upset at her. And she was called, in Greek, she was called scrawny chicken bone, because she was and I was fit, right? Never seen her run so fast in her life.
Oh.
She ran like hell because I think it dawned on her that word would cost her. And it took decades for me to actually stop talking about it. And here I am, 71, and telling you it was a huge betrayal to me.
Yeah.
That I had gone out of my way to come and think of a good way to partner. And she had come up with a way to cheat.
Right.
So it wasn't about the money, it was about the break of trust. So I wonder how many other people have something, that happens to them where they get along and then they get slapped by a reality that not everyone's going to be interested in being fair or being a good partner.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious to see if you had anything like that. So talk to me about when you started to get into the business world. If you were in sales, you were competitive. I was in sales also, and I know what it's like to compete, and it's fun, and you still can have the synergy of a team. Like, you're all for the company, but someone's going to get the bonus, the top bonus. When did you first start to deal with partnerships? Like, obviously your husband would have been a partner, meaning that you dated, boyfriend, girlfriend, and eventually you got into the ultimate partnership. And congratulations for having a marriage that lasts that long.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
But somewhere along the line, you must have learned, that people play dirty sometimes.
Yeah.
Where was your first encounter with these emotions that it isn't just you performing, but you gotta, rely on bozos, and there's going to be, poop, and you want to
Yes.
try not to step in it. So talk about, like, how did you go from corporate sales into being an entrepreneur, and at what point did you learn that?
Yeah. I have two very valuable lessons that I'll share with you, and they have never left me. And what both of these situations did is they prepared me for the unfairness of life, to be perfectly honest with you. One of them was when I was working with an unnamed hotel. We got toward the end of the year and they moved the goalpost. Your goal is this, you're going to make your bonus on this. And at the end of the year, they decide to move the goalpost. So you're not going to make what you thought you made. Now, at first, I like honestly see, because for me, things are very black and white. I don't see things in gray or shades of gray, right? Which is a positive and a negative. And very quickly, I realized, wow, that was, first of all, I felt completely betrayed. I'd worked my tail off to make my incentive. And number two, they've moved the goalpost on me, and I'm not going to actually get I think it was the $50,000 bonus. It was a big deal a long time ago.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, here's what I did though. So here's what was interesting. They moved
I imagine there wasn't enough time to try to make it.
well, so I actually ended up coming out on the positive side. So here's what happened. What they did was they decided to change how they were calculating the room nights that we had brought into the hotel as our sales target. And I thought, two can play at this game. You want to recalculate the room nights? Two can play at this game. And now, we used to use this thing called crystal reports and a
Okay.
piece of software called Delphi. I'm talking about stuff from way back when. Now, the good news is that I'm an integrator. So I'm a visionary. I'm an integrator. I'm all of those avatars. And I thought, touche, here we go. I can play at this game as well. So you're going to change how you calculate this. Let me go into the crystal reports and see if there's a way that I can actually make it say that I did reach this goal. Now, what ended up happening, and my mind might be a little foggy about this because it was a long time ago. I was in my 20s. I'm 57. So it's, we're talking like 30 something years ago.
God, I hate you. You don't even look even 47.
Thank
I
you.
look my age, but I don't care. I don't
I
care that I look my age. But you,
good
oh my goodness,
good genes from my
that's
mom.
awesome.
Really good genes from my
There
mom.
you go. Yeah, give the credit to someone else. Yes.
Totally. So
Wow.
what
Awesome.
happened was I was able to make the calculation and I got some of my bonus, but I never forgot. Holy smokes, they're going to move the goalpost on me at the 11th hour. So that was the first time that had actually happened in the work environment. Now, I ultimately left that hotel and went to work somewhere else, but I got smarter. And I made sure that I had documented the hell out of everything just in case that happened to me again. So that situation
Hmm.
had me put kind of bumpers and safeguards in so that there couldn't be a miscalculation or a different way of interpreting the actual room nights. Because it's not like they didn't just say, oh, we're changing it from 1,000 room nights to 2,000 room nights. They said, well, it counts based on, you have to account for attrition and you didn't account for attrition in here, or we're going to put a higher attrition number. It was the way that they were calculating it.
Hmm.
So I thought,
Got
okay,
it.
two can play at this game. And I sort of planned for that in the next couple of jobs that I had. Now, the second one, trying to think about, oh, well, this one's a really good one, a really good one. I worked for a very large commercial real estate firm, the largest in the
Oh,
world. Okay.
really?
I
Who's
won't,
that? Because they're the largest.
the only one that I worked for before I started my own company. And if you look at LinkedIn, you'll know who they are.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
They'll remain unnamed, but I'm going to tell you what they did because it was dirty and I never forgot it. So when I
Hmm.
went to work in commercial real estate, I was a little older. I was 33. My father-in-law, who is very well connected into the Jewish community, had introduced me to commercial real estate, said, you'd be amazing. And I said, fantastic. Off to the races we went. He got me interviews at all these different places, and CB, the commercial real estate firm that I went to go work for, hired me. Great. Started with them, worked for them for 4 years. 3 years in, I went to the managing partner with an entire list of all of the business, incremental business that I had brought into the firm and said, hey, I wanted to talk about different commission splits. And he said, yeah, we're not really open to that. And I said, okay. I brought in more incremental business. I went to talk to him more. Now, meanwhile, well, it was actually probably a little bit earlier. No, I think it was about year three. Again, this was a long time ago. I procured a piece of business that was worth about $125,000 to the firm, and it was a
Nice.
significant commission to me. And what happened was I had worked on a very small piece of business that wasn't really worth it to get
Hmm.
this larger piece of business. Now, once I
Hmm.
got the larger piece of business and I brought it, because you have to sort of log it in the system, the managing director said to me, yeah, we'd really like you to work with this more senior broker on senior just in terms of age and seniority. And I'm thinking, I don't need him. I've already won the business. I actually don't need anyone to help me execute this. Essentially, what they were doing was reaching into my pocket and taking half of the money out.
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
knew I knew exactly what it was. So I came home and I told my husband that this is what was happening. He said, "Hell no. Like you're not going to allow that." I said, "Of course I'm not going to allow that." So I thankfully outsmarted them. I had a very good relationship with the gentleman that had hired me, and I called him and his name was David C. I called David C. and I said, and I knew David C. very well, and I said, "David C., I just want to tell you how it works here at my company. Oftentimes when we procure pieces of business, they try to get us to work with other people, the more senior brokers, because that's how the senior brokers sometimes are fed. And they are
Exactly.
right making a strong recommendation that I work with this other guy. And I said, and I don't want to work with him. And I said, so, and he said, this ridiculous, Rhea. And I said, I think so too. The only way that I can kind of prevent this is if you send an email to the managing director and say, I've already signed the exclusive agreement. I'm working with Rhea Campbell. I'm not interested in working with anybody else. And again, I knew him well enough, right? And he immediately sent the email to the managing director and said, I'm working with Rhea. I don't need, and I went into the managing director. I said, I don't need this other person on this piece of business. Absolutely not. Now, what that taught me was they were never going to have my back. In fact, they were
Mm.
not going to have my back. They were actually going to hinder my progression here at the company. And I made a decision right then and there that I was going to leave at some point. Now, it was shortly after that that I was also going back in to talk about commission splits. And I realized they're never going to like, I'm bringing incremental business into the firm and they're not going to bring it to me. And I had two choices. I can stay and suck it up, or I can march with my feet. And my husband finally said to me, like, Rhea, you weren't built to work for other people. It's time for you to go and work on your own. You should start your own firm. Now, I had been rumbling about this, but I didn't have the courage to do it. So I was 30. No, I was 40. I was 40. Yeah, when I started
Wow.
my company. So it was 2008. It was right before the entire world fell apart. You know, we were on a high. It was before Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns. I resigned.
Oh, yeah.
I left. I started my own company. And a month later, Lehman Brothers went down, Bear Stearns went down. And I thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? I was very lucky because I had a national client that came with me that turned into an international client. And then for really the next 17 years, I handled that client, the majority of their business all around, actually all of their business all around the world. And then my incremental book of business that I had here in Chicago. But I'll tell you what it taught
Nice.
me.
So was that international client, was that commercial real estate?
It was, yeah, tenant representation. So I handled
Nice.
all of their office acquisitions, dispositions. And during the Great Recession, here's an awesome story for you. During the Great Recession, they were sitting on a mountain of money. And so what they did was they ran around the world buying companies. And every time they bought a company, I would do the due diligence on the lease or the disposition of the lease, right? And that would factor into the purchase price that they were going to make on the company. And then they would buy the company and they would roll those employees into a new office, and we would build out offices: Hong Kong, New York, San Francisco, Berlin.
Oh, what fun.
It was so great. I was running around the world having the best time of my life for the next 5 years.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was great.
That sounds like so much fun. You know, both the examples that you gave about the first company changing the goalpost,
Yeah.
and then these guys wanting you to share with someone else. It's almost, I wrote bait and switch
Oh, yeah.
stinks, because it's almost like they're baiting you. And then as soon as you get somewhere where you think you're going to be, you've given of yourself, they switch. And that doesn't sit well. I think that that's a crossing. It's a crossing. That isn't well digested and cannot be forgiven easily.
Agreed.
I'm so happy for you that you found a better place because of it. To be able to move on and to be with the client that was like that.
And you know what, though, Effie? I'll tell you one thing. You know what it taught me? It taught me what I do not ever want to do to other people.
Exactly. Exactly.
And from
Yep.
that point forward, my motto has been to be overly generous. I don't care if I give more away. Sometimes I do. I give more than I should away, and sometimes I get burned. But I have learned that I never want to be the person that behaves like that, because I felt so betrayed, right? I felt so
Yep.
sort of like,
Yep.
wow.
Yep. And it's completely unnecessary. They didn't
Right.
need to do that.
Right.
On either one of those cases, all it did was cost them.
Yes.
You know, when you say one thing and then turn around and do something else, it makes you untrustworthy. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can get that 100%.
Yeah.
So now, when you were working with this international company, they were your main client, but you had your own business. Is that right?
Well, I wasn't working with them. They were my main client, and then I did have a book of business. So lots of other like law offices, etc. I would help them dispose of or acquire new office space. But toward the end of my career, they had lots of different transactions going on, and that was the majority of what I was doing. Now, at the same time, my husband started a business in 2016, January of 16. We opened a direct primary care medical practice. So my husband was a 20 plus year physician at the University of Chicago, and he wanted to be an entrepreneur. Now, I had already been running my company for many years, so it was like, okay, it's time for you to like do, spread your entrepreneurial wings. And he left and did that.
And direct primary care, was that the name of it, or is that the industry?
It's the industry. So it's like concierge medicine, but it's at a price point that is significantly lower. So it's like a gym membership. It's a monthly membership fee, and you have unlimited access to your physician, primary care physician.
I, my God, Rhea, I remember when you first joined Sub Two, and I was like, "Oh, okay, so you mentioned your husband's a doctor, and you were in direct primary care, and I was like, what the hell is that? Being newly back into the States, right? Because I
Yeah.
was back up in Canada for 14 years, and I looked up your company, and I was like, damn, this lady's doing big stuff. But
Thank
the
you.
thing that really shocked me was the wisdom of that kind of care.
Yeah.
The way you surround the client, I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about when they say American healthcare is better than Canadian.
Yeah.
I was like, damn. And I think this is better than most Americans get,
Oh, it's
because
far better.
I did not consider it to be a common um, model.
Right. Right. It's still not a common model. And because everybody thinks they use their insurance card to pay for primary care services. But you think about people who have like chronic conditions and that need to access their doctor much more frequently. Imagine Sunday night, you have something going on. You don't know if you need to go to the emergency room or if you just need to see your physician. But if you could just call your physician and have a quick conversation. If you're a diabetic, you have COPD, you have hypertension, and something bad is happening. You have cancer. You're dying of cancer. Like you need somebody available. Otherwise, you're running back and forth to the emergency room. And remember, like that is not care that you want unless your life is in jeopardy, right? It's
Right.
that's life or death care. And so this actually really is far better care. I mean, literally, our patients can call our physicians 24 hours a day. They don't because they're trained. You call the emergency line when you have an emergency, but when you don't, it's okay. You can reach us. You can come in same day. You can come in because the panel of patients that our physicians see is 600 compared to 4,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's just better care. So my husband left the University of Chicago. He started Imagine MD, and tragically, his partner died 6 weeks after they opened the first location.
Oh my gosh.
And I wasn't supposed to be in that business. I was supposed to help with
Wow.
the real estate piece only. But we'd sunk a
Uh-huh.
lot of our money into that business. And so when she died,
I imagine the partner probably did too, right?
she was a
That died.
minority. She was a minority equity partner. So she was going to
I
be
see.
more sweat equity. And she
I
was
see.
young. She was only 40, and she died like right there in the office. She dropped dead.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, and like my husband tried to save her and couldn't. And so, I had to step in because my husband said to me
You
like,
didn't want to lose everything.
I don't know anything about business. I'm a doctor. And I said, well, I know a lot about business because I started, but I've got a full-time company. Like, what am I going to do? And Effie, you just do. If you have no choice, right? He looked at me, I looked at him. It was like, it's go time, brother. Like, all we like, what do we do? Like, we roll up our sleeves and we like dig in because we got a lot of money sunk into this business. We don't have any choice. So we
Yeah.
just I just worked
And
around the clock.
the idea is excellent. The idea is excellent. So it's just really, really rotten timing.
Rotten timing. And, you know, listen, it was a tragedy. She died. We didn't expect that to happen. And her, so we paid out the money to her estate. And what ended up happening was, you know, kind of put us in a little bit of a jam. We were like, wow, okay, like we weren't anticipating having to do that. And so, you know, you roll up your sleeves and you say, okay, like time to get busy because we can't let this ship sink. Like we have a lot of money invested in this business. We basically spent all our money, and it's in, and now we got to make it go. And so I worked two jobs. Well, I worked two jobs for 9 years. nine
Wow.
years.
Oh my God. I suppose you learned how to manage your time and priorities very well.
Well, this is what goes back to when I was a little girl. I had a lot of energy. So I was now able to completely tap into that, right? You know, I don't have to self stimulate because I'm stimulated all the time because I am running back and forth trying to, you know, keep this going, move this around, right? Running all the finances for this, getting on a plane, going here, doing that. That fills my cup up. That gives me joy. That keeps me out of trouble. That moves my energy in the right direction. It's awesome, right? I love it. It was joyful.
Good.
Um, and so for 9 years, that's what we did. And then I don't know what the cathartic moment was, but here's what I'm going to tell you. I've told this story a couple of times, so I'll keep it really brief. I don't want to bore people. But I woke up one day and I thought, my mom was dying. And as my mom was dying, I was thinking, is this it? Is this all my life is going to be? Now, don't get me wrong. Again, it looked fine from the outside,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
was successful. I have two businesses. I've done incredibly
And
well
a child.
and a wonderful, healthy child. And I have a beautiful home and I've been all good. But inside, I'm thinking, I've got so much more to give. I like when you watch your parents die,
Mhm.
you know, you realize that it's not a dress rehearsal and that
Right.
you have to get busy doing everything that you want to do because one day you will wake up and I might wake up one day and be 82 like I'm going to wake up one day and be 82. And so I
Your
thought
mom passed at 82.
she passed away at 82. Yeah. Yeah.
That's still on the younger side.
Too young. You know, she had
Yeah.
dementia. And so
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
that's
take
okay.
it back.
Yeah. She,
My
you know,
my mother-in-law died from dementia, and it's
yeah.
not good.
It's not good. It's not. But you know, I'm very lucky. My mom was a happy, demented woman, and we kept her. You know, she loved to have her nails done, and she'd like to have her lipstick on and her jewelry. And I said to her before she slipped so much, I said, "Mom, tell me what, because when you have no voice and I have to be your voice, what do you want?" And she said, "Damn it, Rhea, make sure I look good and I'm clean." And I said, "Oh, girl, I got you." And so I made sure she had her lipstick on and she had PSWs that would shower her. We just made sure she had a wonderful, you know, sort of end.
Nice.
But what
Nice.
happened to me was I looked around and I thought, is this all I'm going to do? Like, I'm pretty sure there's more for me to give. And so I woke up and I got busy and mom was dying. She hadn't died at the time. And I thought, well, you know what? It's now or never. And I need to make some dramatic changes. And I was ready for my third chapter. And I don't know how I found Pace Morby and Sub 2 and all you amazing humans.
None of us do.
I don't know, but I can tell you this. I've found my people. You're my people. I found my people. I found my tribe. I've found the greatest joy of my entire life, and that's here with you guys. And I got
Wow,
busy.
that says a lot.
I was like, I stepped down. I went to my one client and I said, I love you. It's been an amazing run. We've had 17 good years. I cried, she cried. And I said, but I'm done. And I'm stepping down because I'm going to build my own portfolio. I'm building my own empire. And then, Effie, I got busy. When I say I got busy, I got busy. I started doing deals. I started lending money. I jumped into partnerships, which we're going to talk about. And I started mixing it up. I had to shatter some mindset issues that I had, like conservative around money. Whoa, we shouldn't be, because that's the world I came from. We give our
Yep.
money to wealth
Yep.
managers.
And you'd worked very, very hard not to lose it.
We're
So I understand.
because you're a Canadian. What we do is we work to build it and then to keep it. That's ingrained in us as we're a little more
That's right.
conservative with our money, right, in Canada. And so I had to, some of that stuff had to change. And I can tell you, I am a different. I'm not different. I look the same. I have the same energy, but what I do and how I go for it and how I swing things around, like I'm much more comfortable doing things that would be like, wow, that just seems so out of the norm, the more traditional linear kind of path, I guess that I was on. And that sort of took me to partnerships in real estate investing.
Because prior to that, you were just, it was your company.
My company. I did have, so I at one point really early on in the evolution, my company was called Bellaterra Partners. I had 5 brokers. So I'm a licensed real estate broker. Commercial is the same as residential. Commercial is very different, though I didn't really know residential. I'd never done residential. And I had 5 brokers that worked for me, but I recognized I don't like leading people. And so at some point I realized that's not for me. And I just like being the lone wolf, right? That was me. And so I was really real estate consulting mostly for that one client. And it was the goose that laid the golden egg. Like I had a great relationship. They were wonderful humans. I felt like I did a great job. They taught me so much. They're very smart consultants. They're all MBAs from the best schools in the world. They taught me. I grew up with them. They grew up with me. I taught them. They
Yep.
taught me. It was amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
So then the brokerage that you owned, were the brokers just pretty well independent? You weren't teaching them
No, no,
and
no,
oh,
no.
that's
They
interesting.
were not independent. So yes, they were independent,
Okay.
but they were in commercial. In commercial, it's very different. They don't just go off and do
Mhm.
their own. So they would work with me on the business, and then I would give them a cut of the commission. Because in commercial, the only way that you learn tenant representation is by working with someone. There's no book you could go and read about it. Maybe there is now. There's no test. Like when you take the real estate exam, it's not commercial. Like I didn't, like I had to redo
Yeah.
my broker's license just this before April 30th, and I had to go through and take the tests again. And I was like, oh, good heavens, this is the Illinois License Act. Like it's all residential, which I don't do. I don't do residential. I mean, I know a little bit about it now because of buying some homes, and I had bought and sold my own homes. I always represented myself, but commercial is so different, totally different.
Yeah. I'll bet.
Yeah.
I'll bet. So you met Mr. Pace Morby. Tell us, when did you join and what were the first few things that you did?
Yeah. So, I have no idea how I found him or what I was thinking, but somehow, right, I went for it. I joined I didn't even know what a mentorship mastermind, I don't know. I'd never joined one before. I'm a little
Yeah.
cheap. I don't like spending money that I don't think is valuable, right? Again, mindset. And so I remember it was a Thursday night. I signed up. I walked out of the office. I said to my husband, we've been doing it all wrong. And he was like, well, I've been a doctor all my life. I haven't been doing anything wrong, Rhea, but thank you. And I'm like, okay. And I said, no, what I'm talking about is me. Like I should own these buildings. And I joined this mentorship and I just spent, I think it was like 11, I don't know what it was. It was the executive level. And he looked at me like, whoa, Rhea, like, because that's very out of character for me. And what I did was I just started drinking through the fire hose, 4 shots of espresso first thing in the morning. And I started watching the vault, everything, every single day from 6 in the morning
Wow.
until 11 o'clock at night, every day, 7 days a week. Cause I have a little OCD, right? And
Yep.
the way that I learn is I dig in and I just drink through the fire hose and I take notes and I use Chat GPT. And what is that? How do I learn that? Tell me about that. And I started showing up to the Zooms, and I started figuring out,
Yep.
I knew right away I need to know how to underwrite. Show me how to underwrite. Chai and Prakash taught me how to underwrite. And I remember being at
Nice.
their 11 a.m. Saturday morning creative underwriting Zoom, and I would bring deals. I have a deal. I put my hand up. I have a deal. Can we underwrite it? And I remember Chai saying, "You're asking very advanced questions. So these are more about tax strategy," because I had already pulled the whole deal apart and started plugging it in different ways. And he was like, "Oh, these are very good questions." Um, and so slowly, layer after layer after layer, I was like, "Oh, okay, I got to pull this. Oh, and I do this." And so learned it pretty quickly. I would look up the IRS code around sub two and accelerated depreciation, and because I'm a weirdo like that. Again,
Yeah,
the
yeah. You're
energy,
not the only one. You're not the only
right?
one. Yep.
You can
We
relate,
we've got
right? Yeah,
yep, yep. And we have other students who have, can out talk lawyers.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, I wanted to become the expert really quickly, and I need to know the whole thing. I don't want to just come in and own one piece of it. I mean, I need to know how to make the
Right.
call, close the deal, I'm the TC. I'm going to TC the paperwork at least the first time because I need to know it. I'm working with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the title agency. Um, and so that got me into my first couple of partnerships. But let me tell you what I did right first, then let me tell you what I did wrong. So what I did right was I
Okay.
recognized.
We want to. That's why we're here.
Okay, good. All right. So what I did right was when I came into Pace's community, because it's not a mentorship, it's not a whatever, it's a community. Um, I heard him talking a lot about the power of community and how the problems are all solved here. You just need the who, not the how. And I was like, I don't understand any of this because I'm a lone wolf. Remember, I've been alone. I hunt, I kill, I bring it back, I throw it in the cave. And like I don't understand.
Oh my God! The first time you said that, I said, ah, I'm afraid of her.
But that's my right, but that's my personality. I want to
Yes,
bring
yes,
the
I
food.
know.
I
I
want to
know
bring the
you've
food
become
home to
so
you.
much more to me.
No, good.
But at first, I was like, shit, I might be one of those things she throws
No,
back there.
no, in fact, it's a very loving thing. I want to go out, I
I
want to
know.
hunt and kill, and I want to bring it back and go, look, I brought it back for my tribe. Look, you're
Yep.
going to stay
Yep.
warm. I'm going to feed you. I love you, right? That's the
Yep.
spirit with which I do these things. I do them
I
because it
get it.
brings me it
Now I
brings
get
me
it.
right. It brings me joy to bring it back and go, oh, look, it's an antelope head. We can cook it. Like awesome, Rhea. Yes. That's kind of how I feel. So
Yes.
I but I listened to him and I started to read between the lines and I was like, oh, you know, I didn't pay all this money to be in this guy's mentorship or community or whatever you want to call it. Because remember, I wasn't quite indoctrinated yet at that time. I thought, well, I'm going to do everything that he says, and then it's not going to work, and then I'll just prove him wrong. Right. And so I did everything that he said. I reached out to people. I got on Zooms. I connected with people. I partnered with people. I did all the things he said to do. And you know what? It all works. It works. You find,
Nice.
but okay, so I did that part right. What I didn't do right was I let my guard down a little bit and I assumed that everyone was going to behave the way that I behave. And here's the beauty and ugliness of human nature, right? We're all different and character has a while before it really shows itself to you. And you don't get to see somebody's character when you just meet them, right? It develops slowly
Right.
over time. And you see
Yep.
it in different scenarios. You see it when someone's at their best, you see it when they're at their worst. How do they behave? Like when things are falling apart in my world, I don't do things gracefully. I'm not a very graceful woman. I'm cursing and swearing like a truck driver, but I'm rolling my sleeves up and I am digging in to solve the problem. I will work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and not sleep and not eat and not pee if I am solving a problem.
Please pee.
But
Please do pee.
but that's right. But that's how I'm
I
wired.
understand.
Right.
Yep.
And I
I get
just
it.
assume that other people are wired the same way. And that was my fatal mistake. And the other thing that I did was I assumed because, oh, we're gonna work on this together. I bought a couple of houses, sub twos. We took over somebody else's mortgage, young families that trusted us with their credit on
Yep.
their mortgages.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and I have partners that maybe got into some financial difficulty, or I don't know, right? Because I don't know what's happening with them. And, just stopped paying me, right? Because I do all the financials. My companies, thankfully, do all the financials, and just stopped paying me. And then behaved poorly, and then got snippy, and then got a little angry. And look, when people are in a difficult situation, sometimes they lash out, right? My husband knows a lot
Mhm.
about psychology. I don't. I'm a business person. I don't know a lot about psychology. And so my first instinct was just to be pissed off as all could be, right? But what I recognize and realize now is, look, this is a business relationship. I can be pissed off all I want, but the reality is business must go on. And so I am cleaning up the messes of my first year. And, I actually have a lawsuit going on right now with one of my partners.
Oh,
Yep. I mean, I have to take him to court.
you're suing them or they're
I'm,
suing
oh,
you
I'm suing them. Yeah.
for non-performance or what?
For the money that I've had to spend
For fraud?
on the offset, not for fraud. There's no fraud involved. But I've been paying the shortfall. So during the winter months, it's an Airbnb, it makes money. And during the winter months, I distributed all the money to them and to me. And I assumed they were putting money away. And then in the summer months, when it doesn't make money, hey, we're doing the true up and you owe money. Oh, I'm not paying you. Huh? But I still have to pay the mortgage and the solar and everything else. So I don't know what the situation is, right, with those people. And I can't, whatever it is, it's neither here nor there, except that now I have to realize, like, okay, this is business. You know, People get into
Mm.
difficult situations, and I just have to make sure that, right, I'm made whole, and that we continue to pay the obligations of the seller, which is not an issue. I mean, I have, but I also had a couple of other situations where I lent money, right? I lent money.
Okay, here it comes. My fear.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
well, let
I
me
waited such a long time.
Well, there's good news and bad news. So here's the good news. The good news is I've done so many loans. What you have to recognize is, if you are a lender and you originate a lot of loans, a certain percentage of them are going to go bad. In fact, Abraham and Alexis, I was at their PML mastermind. You were there too. And I think they said the stat is like 1%. I don't know over, a
Mhm.
basket of loans, but there are going to be loans that go bad, and you are going to have to force
Right,
performance if you can, or take over the asset or whatever. Um,
right. Just be ready to do it.
and be ready. And so,
Yep.
but early on, right, I had a loan go bad. Now, of course, I was like, what the heck? How could it? And it was really, the operator mismanaged funds. He commingled funds. He, it,
Oh,
yeah, I mean, the reality is, a young guy just didn't really know what he was doing. I don't know the whole scope of it. I do know there were a bunch of other things with other people that was going on. I really sort of stuck to my, like, what's going on with me. And
yeah, because that's hard enough.
it's hard enough. And
Yep.
this particular, gentleman was in a really bad spot. And Effie, my $75,000, like, okay, I'm just going to be really honest. It was $75,000. I'd never lost 75,000. That was a lot of money. But what was
It
happening
is.
to this young man was even worse than me losing my $75,000, because regardless of whether it was intentional, not intentional, he was being crushed under the weight of anxiety, and his mental health
Mm.
deteriorated very, very, very quickly. And once I
Was he able to at least communicate and cooperate? Because
he did,
$75,000 isn't the end of the world.
he
You
did.
can pay $100 a month.
Yeah.
You can, if you accept
Yes.
that you got to get a second job,
Yes.
that you've got to, it's going to take
Yes.
a long time. If you accept the responsibility
Yes.
and communicate, you can work it out.
Yes. In fact, as this poor young man was going through what he was going, look, I was mad as hell. And I knew about all the other things that were going on. But as things were falling apart, I feared more and more and more for his safety because
Mm,
I saw the weight of what was going on. And I stayed in
mhm,
communication with him, knowing that my loan was going bad. Just, I knew.
mm.
And I was trying to somehow help prop him up so maybe mine wouldn't go bad. There was no way it wasn't going to go bad. It was just it was already over. And so once it was over and I knew that my loan was right, the first lien, I was the second lien, first lien holder was going to foreclose, got notice from the hard money lender, then talked to the hard money lender and realized, wow, the scope of what had happened. I still stayed in contact with him because it had gotten so bad for him. There were other things that were going on in his life, and I don't know if some of those other operators knew about those other things. Wasn't any of my business. But I can tell you, that person pays me $100 a month on an auto Zelle because
Oh,
here's what he
nice.
here's what he said to me. The loan went bad. He got out from underneath the crushing weight of what was going on, and he said to me, "You know, Rhea, I can't thank you enough for like trying to help keep me afloat when I felt like I was drowning. And I promise you, if it takes me the rest of my life, I'm going to pay you back."
Yes. 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 He'll redeem himself.
Yeah,
And I think that I wish more people could understand that,
yeah,
that it is the accepting of responsibility and the small actions that over time can make a big difference, as opposed to saying, what the hell? I've got so many, I'm just going to file bankruptcy. The hell with all of you.
right.
Instead of taking the quick, easy way to kind of, um, figure out who you are, and if at all possible, to do just that.
Yeah,
Because by the time he pays it back, trust me, you could have made a whole lot more with it. It's not about as much the money as it is the character
right,
and the actions.
right.
I get that. I get that because I think a lot about borrowing and lending, raising capital, the whole thing. Because I started in sub two earlier than you, and I had the whole idea was to build assets and also to do lending. And I held off so much because of what I saw and how I almost got taken so close. And Melissa Palmer saved me from, those people that were
Yeah,
deliberately trying to get me to buy in so that they could take some money out of, instead of putting it where they said they were going to put it, and to get paid back Melissa to make her shut up. And Melissa, fortunately, has the character that she couldn't stand for that. So between that experience and seeing so many people, you know, uh, get 104 houses under contract and only perform in less than five, and how many millions were lost and stuff. I've been very, very hesitant. It wasn't until the third PML mastermind that I feel, okay, I am ready. I know how I can do it. And I will draw some people that are like me. I don't need huge, huge volume. I just need quality, and that will build over time.
yeah.
Um, did you lend again?
Yes. In fact, I had already done a lot of loans after that loan. And in fact, very shortly after that, I did a very large loan that made me $150,000 in 45 days. So my point is
Nice. How much did you have to put out? What was
500,000,
the
500.
nice?
Yeah.
And you got 150 in 45 days?
And my money never
Sweet.
left escrow.
Oh,
Mhm. Yeah.
so it wasn't a double close.
No, no, never left escrow.
What was it?
It was a down payment for a multifamily, and it never left escrow
Okay.
because they were in due diligence and they decided not to move forward with it. But I still make my profit because they used my money.
I like it a lot. That sounds even better than the
Right.
double close.
Well, and let me tell you, so while this loan went bad, I had to go tell my husband. Okay, so my husband, right, who's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yes, okay." And Now, I was still looking at, do I redeem the first lien holder? Because I'm a junior lien holder. Juniors have the right of redemption, and you can redeem. So I could have bought the asset for 480,000 and then put another 250 and rehabbed it and then sold it. And I kept trying to do all these mental, gymnastics on how I was going to save my 75,000. Okay. And I could have easily done that. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And it had this aha moment again, because I've been surrounded by you guys, right? By my community that has taught me to like think more clearly about what the value of your time is. And I
Right.
actually got on family night with Pace and I said, Pace, I'm thinking about redeeming the first lien holder. And he was like, okay, well, maybe I'll lend to you. And I was like, oh, okay, that'd be awesome. So I was like trying to move the puzzle pieces around, simply trying to save my 75,000. And I, again, roll up your sleeves, do all the analysis. And I finally realized, Effie, what am I doing? I am doing all sorts of mental gymnastics to save 75,000. How much time am I wasting trying to save my 75,000 when I could be out there doing other deals, lending, making way more than 75,000? When I had that aha moment, I literally let go. I was like, it's gone. I
Nice.
don't want to
Yeah.
redeem the first lien holder. I'm not going to go and get the construction. I'm not. Why am I doing that? And I literally let it
Yeah.
go and I got busy doing a whole bunch of other things. And my 12-month trailing average on my loans, I don't, I just, it slipped a little bit because it was 44% annually. It's 33% annualized on $1.7 million. That's what we've lent out.
Wow.
So, like
Wow.
my point is,
Congrats.
thank you. I mean,
Congratulations. How many loans does that make?
I'd have to look at my KPI sheet because I don't even know. Because what I did was I built a team that handles all the lending. Now I'm the only one who wires and I'm the only one who approves. I'm right. I have to look at it. Once they do all the underwriting, they do all the intake, right? Then I'm the one who checks the underwriting. Yep, 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 looks good. And then I approve it. And then then they do all the paperwork. And then I'm the only one who approves, wires the actual money for the loan. But my point is, I like,
What tell me a little sorry,
yeah,
being we're going to launch June 1st. So we're almost at launch here. And of course, I'm going to ask, what does your lending team look like? How many people are involved and what are you doing? Is it just commercial or are you doing single or
no,
what?
three people. So Mohammed, who's my CFO, he really sort of oversees it. So actually what I did, Effie, is I started another company. So the company is called Syncara.com, SYNQARA.com. We provide underwriting services, bookkeeping services, fractional CFO services, data and analytics. All of the services I was outsourcing and paying money for, I brought it all in house. And then I made him an owner
Nice.
because he was my CFO. And he said, Rhea, I really want to own a company. And I said, you've earned your seat at the table right beside me. And he said, really? And I said,
Wow.
really? So we started a company. It's called Sankara. My companies pay Sankara just like a client would to do this. They do underwriting. They handle all of my loans. They underwrite everything. Now I'm co-owner, but I'm only an advisor, right? So I advise the direction of the company, and then they underwrite everything. So it's Mohammed Kafil, Sharish, one other gentleman we just hired, and there's four so far. And then Mike is my executive assistant, and he also helps on like the intake on the funding. I have a couple of
Nice.
websites that I'm about to
So
launch.
you have a team of 5 that are doing
Well, I
this.
have a team of actually 10 because I have a land
Oh,
business as well with a bunch of people in that. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
There's like we have a lot
Wow.
of different things. So many things have
Now,
happened.
yeah, you're not kidding. Um, and I want to know more. And before we go any further, I want you to take a little bit of time to talk about Mohammed because I think it's very special. And I myself have told you I'm looking for an assistant, somebody to help me. And I'm like, don't know where to find them and all that sort of stuff. It's been not easy. But talk to us about how Mohammed came to you, who he is. And I think it's really, really, really smart and awesome that you
Yeah.
made him owner.
Yeah. Well, so the first thing that, I found Muhammad 6 years ago when we were getting ready to raise our first round of capital at Imagine MD, the company I sold last year to private equity. I needed somebody to help me with very complex financial models because I was going to raise a Series A, $25 million Series A. And I know just enough to
Wow.
be dangerous, right? But 5-year discounted cash flows, very complex, like Wall Street models. I didn't know how to build those. I knew about them, but I'm like one finger Excel, I know enough about it, but I needed an expert. So I found Muhammad. I don't remember Fiverr. Actually, I found him on Fiverr. Oh, you know what? Sorry, it's just my signal from my camera. I found him on Fiverr. We started doing some work together, and I learned that he was a professor. That's the job. He was a professor of finance at the University of Lahore in Pakistan. So he taught MBA students. And he was doing this as a
Nice.
side gig because in Pakistan, they don't pay a lot of money. And he has a family and kids, and he wanted a better life. So we started working together, and it was very sort of standoffish at first because he did a job for me at first. And then I said, I really need like ongoing work, but we didn't know how to price it. And he was like, well, we could do hourly. And I think it was like $6 an hour, $5 an hour, which is like in Pakistan,
Oh my
like,
God. He's
but
so expensive.
it's in Pakistan, right? And
Yeah,
over
yeah, I know, I
time,
know.
like we got to know each other, we got to trust each other. And I noticed that he was much more available to me than he had been when we first started working together. And I said, Mohammed, you seem to have a lot more time on your hands. And he said, yes, I do, Rhea. I quit my job. I said, you did what? He said, I quit. Now we've built enough of a relationship at that point that he just didn't tell me that he's quit his job. So when he said I quit my job, I said, would you like to come and work with us? Imagine MD. We need a controller, somebody like a chief financial officer. And so he became our full-time director of finance and did everything on the back end around finance. So, quite frankly, Effie, he's the one that helped us through the sale of our company to private equity. So, when you are preparing for a
Wow.
sale to private equity, there's a whole set of financial due diligence that you have to do. You're uploading things into a data room that the company that's acquiring you is going through the fine. It's forensic accounting, and
Yep.
it's a very complex, very detailed process. And he was amazing. So he helped shepherd us through the sale of the company. But he also said to me when we were selling the company, Rhea, where do I go when you sell the company? And I said, don't be ridiculous, Mohammed. You come with me, right? Like wherever I go, you go. We're together.
You go. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was when I said, this is what I'm pivoting over into. He'd already been doing things in my real estate firm for me. And I said, you have a place for me. And he said, that's awesome, but I want to be an owner. And I said, well, and I was reading a book about transformational leadership at that time because I'm not a very good, I'm a much better leader now than I was then, but I needed to learn and to grow into being a better leader because I was always telling people what to do and how to do it rather than just telling them what the outcome was and letting them find a way there and maybe just shepherding and guiding them because I'm a bit of a control freak. Again, the lone wolf wants to go out and kill things and bring it back and go, look
Yep.
here, you,
Yep.
right? So he said, I want to be an owner. And I said, all right, let's get you a path to ownership. So we opened a US company. He's an owner in a US company. I introduced him to my private banker. We opened up a bank account. He got his, Pakistani national, had to
Nice.
fill out all sorts of paperwork here. And, his eyes kind of got wide and he was like, I never thought this would be available to me. And I said, you earned it. You earned your seat at the
Nice.
table. So he
Yep.
runs that company. Now, that company provides services to all of my companies, and that company takes fees on every one of the loans that we originate. We originate loans and they get fees
Nice.
for managing it. So the company's making money. I am making money from my own companies. Pace talks about vertical integration. I'm like, yeah, vertically
Yep.
integrate all of
Yep.
this. So that's what we did to set that all up.
Sweet. Sweet. Have you ever met him in person?
I've never met him in person. No.
I want someone like that.
I plan to, though. I do plan to. In fact, I talk to him all the time about when I fly over there, because we have an office. So we now actually have an office with desks and computers all set up. And because we're
Oh,
scaling up, we're
nice.
just hiring people right now. And I said, I will fly in to Lahore and spend some time with the team, right? Like this is my team too. Spend some time with the team. Like we'll go out, we'll eat Pakistani street food. We'll do like, I know the value of making sure that people see you, that they understand you, your personality, your style. If you didn't understand me and you heard me talking about, I want to go out and hunt and kill, right? Like that feels a little, ah,
Yeah, I remember. I remember thinking, I don't know this woman.
right, right,
Now I do. It's different. I'm not intimidated by it.
right.
But at first, I was like, what the
Right,
heck?
right. So getting like being in somebody's orbit, right? You're around their energy. You see, like I'm a hugger, right? Like I hug people. And when I hug people, it's a full
Yep.
on frontal, real hug. Like that's just the way, that's the way I'm wired.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I know someday I will go over there and I will meet the team, right? He's hiring people right now. I'll meet the team. I want to encourage them. I want them to know, that they're valued and that we pay the amount of money that we pay to Pakistani nationals is money they would never make in their country. Because again,
Cool.
I want to do what was not done for me. I want to be more generous rather than, going back to remembering how they
Yep.
moved that damn goalpost on me, right? And they were trying to
Yeah.
take my.
Yeah.
I don't ever want someone to leave a company that I work for and say that girl Rhea was cheap. I want them to go,
Yeah. Cheated me.
she cheated me. She was cheap. She was whatever. No, I want them to go, it wasn't a fit, whatever. Maybe I had to let them go, but boy, she was generous. Boy, she did things that like nobody else has ever done. Because you know what?
Yeah.
I can. And my
Yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
my mom taught me this. My mom was generous to a fault. My mom and dad were pretty successful, and my mom loved her family wasn't, didn't have a lot of money. She flew her sisters in all the time. My parents had a bunch of different homes. They entertained, they took care of family, right? My mom gave, if she saw you, if you said to my mom, "Oh, I love your sweater," she'd say, "Oh, this would look fabulous on you." She'd take it off and she'd say, "Here, you should have it." And it would be $1,000 beautiful. She did that
Wow.
all the especially when she had dementia. She'd be like, "Oh, you like this? Here, I want to take it off." I'd be like, "No, mom, no, mom, that's no, don't give that away." Eventually we had to take the really expensive things away from her because she was going to give them to everybody. But that was my mom. And you know what? I got that from my mom. I want to
Yep.
be, and my husband, he doesn't care about money. He could live in a shoebox and eat bologna sandwiches. He likes nice cars. He likes that's the only thing he cares, and nice houses. But the rest of it, he's like, I don't care
And
about.
nice women, or at
And
least one
and
nice woman.
yeah, and nice women. But he doesn't care about fancy stuff. That's not his thing.
Yeah. I
I
got
like a couple of trinkets that sparkle, but the point is being generous, being more generous, even if you get burned. I've learned I would rather do that because I've made some mistakes where I haven't been generous or I haven't been super kind or I haven't been super nice. And I've had to go back and make amends for that. Because guess what?
you.
I can't sleep at night. I don't know how the other person
Yes, it
feels,
wears on you.
but I feel like poop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So treat others like you want to be treated yourself.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
golden rule.
The golden rule.
Wow.
It's so, and even if somebody bites you, like I've been bitten by a couple of partners after being incredibly generous. And at first I was bitter and angry and pissed off. And now I'm just, it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, because they'll have to deal with themselves.
They will.
Yep.
They will.
Exactly.
And I like to
Yep.
think about it this way. I don't know what's going on in their lives. And so
Right.
I want to give the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes people do things out of character when they feel crushed by the weight of bills or something's or they're shamed if you're a man, right? Shame is a big thing, right? Shame around money or mismanaging money or things like I don't know what that
Yep.
psychological stuff is,
Yep.
right? Um,
Yep.
My husband helps me see this stuff because he knows a lot about psychology and he deals with people all the time. And so he's much kinder. He's much more willing to like see the good and see people and accept people as they are than I am. I get there eventually, but I'm pissed off at first. And then I
Yeah.
eventually get to a different place.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, I want to say thank you very, very much. Could you kindly spell the name of your company nice and slowly?
Yes. Well, I have a couple. Which one do you want?
Which one do you want to promote? We can put all three or four or five.
So Syncara is synqara.com, syncara.com.
QARA.com.
Yep. That is the company that I started that actually serves all of my companies with underwriting services, bookkeeping, fractional CFO services, administrative services, and with data and analytics. So we have some of the
Oh,
best
very
and the
nice.
brightest. We have
All
consultants.
right. So services to real estate investors.
Correct. And then
Very nice.
rheacampbell.com, which is my brand. That's just my website. And I'm writing a book. It's called The Efficient Bitch, which is coming out at the end of this year. You'll see it on www.rheacampbell.com. And you'll see my
Very
private
nice.
money lending, sort of my criteria is all there. And it's just really my personal, like it's my professional website. And then my lending sort of capital website is DECA, DEKA, capitalpartners.com. And that's where if you're a borrower and you want to borrow money, you can submit deals. If you want to partner with me on a 100-unit multifamily, you can submit that information there. But you can
Are
also
you
just,
dealing in large part with multifamily?
I haven't
DECA
bought one yet.
Capital Partners.
DecaCapitalPartners.com. I haven't bought a multifamily yet. I'm just about to. I have an LOI in on a 49 unit in Nashville. I don't, we'll see. But mobile home, I'll buy any asset class as long as it's got really, I don't buy for the 5 year exit. Like I'm 57. Like I don't need the
Okay.
five.
So what do you buy for?
I buy for cash flow and depreciation.
Oh,
That's it.
okay.
Yep.
Well, cash
And
flow I can definitely get behind,
well,
and depreciation.
and honestly, I for the joy of putting together the complex, creative, crazy deal. Like I'm a deal architect. The harder the better. The more complex and crazy, the more excited I get. Again, this is me expelling my energy out into the world and being able to like adventure through deal making.
Gotcha.
That's my thing.
Gotcha. Wow, that's pretty awesome. Well, I definitely want to say thank you very, very, very much. And I do have to have you back.
I would love to.
Awesome. We're going to talk more about the actual. You know that in case you guys don't know, I have pivoted somewhat. That's why some of these episodes are pre-recorded, and some will be live still. And I'm pivoting towards co-living and raising capital and lending. And as I wish, whoever I want, that comes on to talk about all the things we talk about. So I'd like to say thank you very, very much. And I encourage you guys to come next week. Next week, I will be having Abraham talking about capital raising and lending. So please attend for that. And I'm going to remind you not to close your browser.
I will not.
And I'm going to say thank you, everyone. And Rhea, thank you so much.
I love you,
Bye.
Effie.
Let's do
Thank
it.
you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Awesome to be
When
here.
you did that, I was like, awesome. Thanks, everyone. Take care.